While I build my new outboard motor test tank, I want to talk about why boats and outboard motors haven't changed much in the last 20 years, and why they're so expensive. If you've ever shopped for a small boat, first of all, I'm sorry, because at some point you've probably realized that these things are weirdly expensive. A simple aluminum fishing boat could cost you 10 to 20 grand. A 90 horsepower outboard motor might be another 12. That's more than some new cars cost. And what's wild is the boats and outboards, they look exactly like they did 20 years ago. The same aluminum or fiberglass hulls, the same throttle controls, the same vinyl upholstery. Meanwhile, cars have evolved so much that they can practically drive themselves. But boats, no. They still feel like someone forgot to update the technology after like 1998. So why hasn't boating kept up with everything else? And why does it all cost so much? It's not that people don't like boats. I mean, most everybody agrees that boating is great. And you might think that there's huge sales with regards to boats and outboard engines. But compared to cars, it's a very, very tiny world. And that turns out to be one of the biggest clues. Because innovation isn't just about ideas, it's about economics. And boats, well, they live in a weird little corner of the economy where almost nothing scales. Here's the basic math problem. About 80 million cars are sold every year worldwide. 80 million. That's a lot of cars. Now, guess how many outboard motors get sold? A few 100,000 total for a year. That's like trying to fund a Hollywood blockbuster movie on a YouTube Shorts budget. Every car manufacturer can spend billions of dollars developing new engines, new batteries, and factories because they sell millions of units. Boat builders can't. They sell only a few thousand of each model of boat. Every hull mold, every R&D project has to be paid for by a tiny number of buyers. So instead of massive assembly lines, most boats are actually built by hand. Fiberglass is laid manually. Welding of aluminum boats is done manually. Wiring, done manually. Trim installed manually. All that manual human labor means that boats cost more to make. And also that change happens slowly. And then there's the next problem. The ocean literally wants to kill your boat. Compared to boats, cars have it easy. Paved roads, predictable weather, gas stations everywhere. Or if you're running an EV, charging stations are getting to be pretty easy to find as well. But boats, salt water, harsh UV light on the water, vibrations and rough seas, intense humidity, and the occasional seagull attack. Everything on a boat, every wire, every nut and bolt has to survive conditions that would make a car cry. And that's why marine engines are overbuilt by necessity. And that durability adds cost. Because even a small failure at sea isn't just inconvenient, it can be dangerous. So manufacturers generally don't take many risks. If a new material or design doesn't hold up, it could sink more than the product. it could sink the company's reputation. Heck, that's something that happened with Evinrude many years ago. So the safest bet? Keep selling what already works. And of course, there's a paperwork angle as well. Before a boat or an outboard motor can be sold, it has to meet US Coast Guard and EPA or EU standards. Emissions testing, flotation tests, safety labeling, all of that costs time and money. So for a big car company, for a car, that's annoying but manageable. But for small boat builders, that's a massive barrier to change. And because boating accidents can lead to lawsuits, and not the small kind of lawsuits either, manufacturers have to be cautious. Think about like if you were to do a radical new hull design for a boat, but it flips over in choppy water. That could bankrupt a company overnight. So what do? They stick to conservative designs that are certified safe already. That's why every small fishing boat looks like, well, every other small fishing boat. Now let's also talk about who's actually buying new boats and new outboard motors. Because boating is kind of an old person hobby. The average new boat buyer is in their 50s or 60s. They want reliability and not necessarily a touchscreen steering wheel that updates over Wi-Fi. And because the market is so fragmented between things like bass boats, pontoon boats, sailboats, ski boats, and fishing boats, there's no single platform that can fund sweeping innovation like the car industry does. Think about it. You don't have one SUV of boats. You have 10,000 tiny little niches within boating. And the people who would demand change in the industry, those are younger buyers. And those younger buyers are often priced out from buying new boats. And between accessories, trailering, dock fees, maintenance, fuel costs, boating is really a luxury hobby. So innovation slows down because the people who could drive that innovation, they aren't the people who can actually afford to participate in boating. Okay, but what about electric boats? I mean, electric cars exploded in the last 10 years. Shouldn't electric boats be next? And I know, I used the word exploded with electric cars. In theory, yes. In practice, progress has been very slow. Moving through water takes way more energy than rolling on wheels. For example, a car might use 20 kilowatt hours to go 100 miles, but a boat might burn through that in 10 miles. So unless batteries suddenly double in energy density, electric boats seem to be limited to short range, high cost, and lower power. And even if you could build your own long-range, powerful electric boat, where do you charge that boat? Most marinas don't have the infrastructure, and running new high-voltage lines near water is, let's just say, not ideal. However, there are companies that are trying. For example, Candela is a company that uses hydrofoils to lift the boat out of the water and reduce drag. And Pure Watercraft is working with General Motors on electric outboards. These are great ideas, but they're very expensive, limited, and they're early stage. It's progress, but it's happening at, well, rowboat speed. So, what could finally shake things up and actually help with innovation? A few things. For example, if suddenly we had cheaper batteries and lighter composite materials to make boats out of. Or if there was a way to scale 3D printing for hulls and molds, that would shake up the industry. Maybe innovative shared ownership models, kind of like boat clubs where you rent instead of own, but obviously priced much better than current boat clubs because they're very expensive. And maybe better automation in the industry so more people can feel confident piloting boats without years of experience. But the real game changer might not be in technology at all. It might be in accessibility. If getting on the water were cheaper and simpler, demand would rise, and with it, innovation. We've been seeing some of that with regards to the boom in kayaks over the last few years. So, the reason boats haven't changed much? It's not that the industry is lazy, it's economics, physics, and a little bit of saltwater spite. Small market, harsh environment, old customer base. That's a perfect storm for slow progress. But the good news is that it is starting to change, but slowly. Maybe the next big boating revolution won't be about more horsepower, but it'll be instead about making the water more accessible to everyone. And until then, boating will probably keep being a strange mix of old school charm and high-tech price tags. So what would you change about small boats? Drop a comment below, and if you enjoyed this deep dive, hit that like button so the algorithm doesn't sink us. And here's my outboard motor test can. I think it turned out pretty good. What do you think?